Hey guys, welcome back to another super useful, mind-blowing video. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU, has gotten so massive and complicated that if you just jump in blindly without a map, your brain is going to melt and you won't understand a single thing. Now, you probably already know that you shouldn't watch Marvel movies based on their release dates. Instead, you need to watch them in chronological order, the timeline, to actually get how the Infinity Stones popped up and what the heck is even going on. Since this universe is insanely long, in this video, we're going to break down Part 1, going step by step from the absolute ground zero all the way to the end of Phase 3 and the epic conclusion of the Infinity Saga. And hey, I've got a special surprise for you guys. I'm adding a brand new phase called Phase 0, so you can fully wrap your head around Marvel's multiverse storylines. So, without further ado, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and get ready, 'cause here we go. Alright guys, before we hit play on the very first movie, let me dissect Marvel's phase system for you once and for all so you know exactly what you're dealing with. As of right now, the MCU is divided into 6 main phases. But to keep the audience from getting totally confused, Marvel itself bundled these phases into 2 massive sagas. First, we have the Infinity Saga, which covers phases 1, 2, and 3. The story of these 3 phases completely revolves around introducing the main heroes, forming the Avengers, and Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones, leading up to the absolute masterpiece that is Endgame. In this video, we're going to map out and wrap up this exact section for you. Second, we have the Multiverse Saga, which includes phases 4, 5, and 6. This is where the story dives deep into parallel universes, broken timelines, introducing Deadpool, mutants, and ultimately the rise of Doctor Doom, which we will completely cover in the next video. Oh, and one more thing. I'm going to break down and explain this entire watch order for you completely spoiler-free. So, what's the ultimate trump card of our video? It's that we've added our own custom but seriously crucial phase to this list called Phase 0. Phase 0 includes those nostalgic old-school movies outside the main MCU, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and the classic X-Men movies. Trust me, with the direction Marvel is heading right now, watching these before starting Phase 1 has literally become mandatory. So, here is our game plan for the video. First, Phase 0, aka the multiverse prerequisites, then Phase 1, the origins of the heroes, followed by Phase 2, the expansion of the universe, and finally Phase 3, the peak of the Thanos War. Got your mind sorted out? Awesome. Now let's head to our very first stop, Phase 0 and those nostalgic universes. Alright guys, we've made it to the coolest secret menu of this video, Phase 0. Now, you might be asking, dude, these movies are like 20 years old, and Marvel Studios didn't even exist back then the way it does now, so why the heck should we watch them first? The answer fits in just 2 words, Doctor Doom and the multiverse. Marvel has reached a point where all boundaries between parallel universes are completely shattered. If you skip these old-school masterpieces in your binge marathon, by the time you reach the higher phases and the multiverse saga, you're going to miss out on half the hype, the nostalgia, and the actual logic behind those insane crossovers. So here are your golden prerequisites. 1. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy. Spider-Man 1, 2, 3. The modern superhero cinematic universe literally owes its life to this trilogy.
You need to watch Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker from the very first movie in 2002 all the way to the 3rd one. This is where you get introduced to the core concept of a hero's responsibility, Peter's struggling personal life, and, of course, legendary, irreplaceable villains like the Green Goblin and Doc Ock. The story and atmosphere of these 3 movies are the absolute pillars for a huge chunk of Marvel's future, so you definitely cannot miss them. Right after Tobey, jump straight into Andrew Garfield. These 2 movies bring a more modern tone, a darker atmosphere, and of course, a way more agile and witty Peter Parker. Watching Peter's relationship with Gwen Stacy and the heavy tragedies that go down in this universe plays a massive role in how the multiverse concept evolves later on. So make sure you watch these two with full attention and keep a close eye on the villains. This movie is basically the prequel to the entire X-Men universe. Here, you'll dive into Logan's dark past, see how exactly adamantium was injected into his bones, and explore his complicated relationship with his brother, Sabretooth. Most importantly, this is the first place Ryan Reynolds ever plays Deadpool, though it was a super weird, annoying version with his mouth literally sewn shut. Watching this is a must if you want to understand why Deadpool constantly roasts this specific version and Hugh Jackman himself in his own movies. Now it's time to get familiar with the concept of mutants. This trilogy, which kicked off back in the year 2000, shows a world where regular humans are terrified of people with altered genes and superhuman abilities. These three movies are incredibly vital because they introduce you to the leaders of two totally opposite factions, Professor X and Magneto. And best of all, they introduce you to the legendary Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman, who is going to completely shake up the multiverse down the road. Right after that trilogy, head straight into this movie. Why? Because this masterpiece was officially the first and best attempt by a superhero franchise to play around with different timelines and time travel. The story perfectly connects the dark future of mutants to their past, and watching it will seriously prep your brain to understand the whole broken timeline phenomenon in the MCU. And finally, the grand finale of Phase Zero. These two insanely funny, action-packed, and bloody Deadpool movies starring Ryan Reynolds. Wade Wilson is a character who constantly breaks the fourth wall, talks directly to the audience, and roasts the entire movie industry. Watching these two is super important so you can see how this crazy mercenary lives in his own universe. That way, when he eventually steps into the main MCU later on, you'll completely catch all of his inside jokes and references.
Alright guys, the Phase Zero chapter is officially closed, and now we're about to dive into the official storyline of the Marvel Universe. Based on the watch order I've lined up for you, we are not watching these movies by their release years. Instead, we're going by the chronological timeline of the story, so everything clicks together perfectly like a flawless puzzle. Let's hit up the very first phase. Number 1, Eyes of Wakanda, Season 1. The start of this entire massive marathon kicks off with this animated series. The story follows the brave warriors throughout Wakanda's history who were tasked with traveling the world to recover dangerous artifacts and fragments of the priceless, life-giving element known as vibranium, keeping Wakanda's existence a secret. Why is it at the very top of the list? Because this show reveals the deep history and lore of the Wakandan kingdom and the roots of vibranium centuries before we ever step into the modern world of Iron Man and the rest of the heroes. Number 2, Captain America, the First Avenger. Now we're traveling back to the 1940s, right in the middle of World War II. This is where we meet Steve Rogers, a skinny, frail kid with a heart of gold who gets injected with the super soldier serum and becomes Captain America. Why is this movie so important? First off, you get introduced to his best friend, Bucky Barnes, and Tony Stark's dad, Howard Stark. Second, and most importantly, this movie is the first place that unveils one of the 6 Infinity Stones, the Tesseract, the Space Stone, that glowing blue cube that connects the entirety of Phase 1. Number 3, Marvel Studios one-shot, Agent Carter. Right after Captain America crashes into the ice, you need to watch this short film, also known as a one-shot. The story centers on Agent Peggy Carter after World War II, showing how she fights against gender discrimination in the spy agencies, and how the initial sparks to found the massive organization known as S.H.I.E.L.D. are struck alongside Howard Stark. This short is an incredible bridge connecting Marvel's old-school era to the modern world. Number 4, Captain Marvel. Now, the story jumps ahead about 50 years, throwing us right into the mid-1990s. The plot is all about Carol Danvers, an Earth pilot who gains some seriously heavy cosmic powers. In this movie, you're going to meet a super young Nick Fury with both of his eyes still intact, get to know alien races like the Kree and the Skrulls, and find out exactly where the initial spark to form the Avengers first popped into Nick Fury's head. Number 5, Iron Man 1. Now we've made it to 2008, the movie where everything actually kicked off in the real world. Tony Stark, a billionaire and military genius, gets kidnapped during one of his missions and builds his very first suit in a dark cave to break out. This movie officially starts the modern era of technology in Marvel, and with that iconic line, "I am Iron Man," it basically ushers the world into a whole new era. Number 6, Iron Man 2. The story of this one takes place right after the first movie. Tony Stark is now a global celebrity, but the core of his suit is literally poisoning his blood. This movie is super critical because it has tons of setups for future films. Tony's buddy, James Rhodes, finally suits up and becomes War Machine, and most importantly, S.H.I.E.L.D. undercover agent Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, steps into the MCU for the very first time. Number 7, The Incredible Hulk. The story of Bruce Banner and the Giant Green Hulk. Now here's a super fun fact that a lot of people don't know. Timeline-wise, the events of this movie happen exactly at the same time as Iron Man 2 and the next movie, Thor. That's why they call these 3 movies Nick Fury's Big Week, because the head of S.H.I.E.L.D.
had to manage all 3 of these crises at the exact same time. In this one, you'll get a look at Hulk's uncontrolled rage and his run from the military. 8. Marvel One-Shot. A funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer. This short film takes place right after Agent Coulson tells Tony Stark in Iron Man 2 that his mission has changed and he needs to head to New Mexico. The story is about Coulson stopping at a regular gas station on his way to Thor's hammer, where he runs into an armed robbery. This mini-movie shows that the suit and tie S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are absolutely no joke and have some insane combat skills. 9. Thor. Our story finally lifts off the ground, and we get our first look at the kingdom of Asgard. Thor, the god of thunder, gets punished by his father Odin for being arrogant and reckless, and is banished to Earth without his legendary hammer, Mjolnir. Why is this movie so important? We get introduced to one of the most popular, smartest, and most charming villains in cinema history, Loki, Thor's adoptive brother, who has a ton of schemes up his sleeve. 10. Marvel One-Shot, The Consultant. This incredibly vital one-shot takes place right after the events of Hulk and Thor. Agent Coulson and Agent Sitwell are sitting in a diner, plotting how to stop the World Security Council from forcing them to put Abomination, the villain from the Hulk movie, on the Avengers team. They decide to send an annoying, pushy consultant, who is none other than Tony Stark, to go see General Ross and completely sabotage the meeting. This short film perfectly decodes that post-credit scene from The Incredible Hulk for you. 11. The Avengers, 2012. And now the grand finale of Phase 1. Loki invades Earth, and Nick Fury brings together the team, whose individual backstories you now fully know. The Battle of New York goes down, closing out the Phase 1 chapter with a massive bang. Alright guys, after the epic finale of the Avengers, we're stepping into Phase 2. This is where we see the fallout of the Battle of New York, hitting everywhere from the deep cosmos to the darkest alleys of the city. Let's get into the exact order. 1. Marvel Studios One-Shot, Item 47. Right after Loki's army gets wrecked in New York, a ton of alien weapons and tech are left scattered on the ground. This short film follows a regular couple who stumbles upon one of these alien guns, Item 47, and decides to go on a bank robbery spree. This one-shot shows you exactly how S.H.I.E.L.D. is forced to step in and clean up these dangerous weapons. 2. Thor, The Dark World. Now we're lifting off from Earth once again. Thor has to restore order to the 9 realms after the chaos in New York, while Loki is locked up in prison for what he did. But an ancient threat in the form of the Dark Elves wakes up. Why is this movie so important? It introduces the 3rd Infinity Stone, the Aether, aka the Reality Stone, which is absolutely crucial for Thanos' future plans. 3. Iron Man 3. Tony Stark is back home, but the Battle of New York and seeing the other side of that wormhole has completely shattered his mental health. Tony is dealing with severe panic attacks and nightmares, spending night and day building suit after suit. In the middle of all this, a mysterious terrorist known as the Mandarin enters the game, and Tony has to figure out how to survive using nothing but his brain without his flashy armor. 4. Marvel Studios One-Shot, All Hail the King. This super entertaining short film shows the direct aftermath of Iron Man 3. The actor who played the Mandarin is now locked up in a maximum security prison, totally loving his newfound fame.
But a reporter comes to interview him, an interview that drops a massive bombshell about the real Mandarin and the shadowy organization known as the 10 Rings, which we'll deal with years down the road. 5. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Hands down, easily one of the top 3 best Marvel movies of all time. Steve Rogers is now running missions for S.H.I.E.L.D., but he uncovers a massive, dark conspiracy right at the heart of the organization itself. This movie is an incredible political spy thriller that opens huge doors for the future. Falcon's entrance into the story, and of course, Steve facing his old best friend Bucky Barnes, who's been brainwashed into the lethal Winter Soldier, takes the hype of this movie to absolute peak levels. 6. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1.
take the camera completely off Earth and fly billions of light years away. We meet Peter Jason Quill, aka Star-Lord, who steals a mysterious orb. This heist forces him to team up with a bizarre group of misfits, including Gamora, Rocket Raccoon, Groot, and Drax. This movie is insanely awesome because on top of introducing the fourth stone, the Power Stone, it makes Thanos' presence in the cosmos way more menacing. 7. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Even though this movie was released a few years later, its story takes place just a couple of months after the first one. So to keep the timeline smooth, you gotta watch it right here. The crew has officially become a family now, pulling off cosmic missions, but things get wild when the secret identity of Peter's real dad is exposed, putting the entire galaxy in danger. 8. I Am Groot Seasons 1 and 2. Right after the adventures of Guardians 2, you should check out these short animated 5-episode collections. They're just short, super funny, and incredibly cute stories about baby Groot's misadventures on different planets. It has zero spoilers for the main plot, but it's a total vibe and perfectly shows you how Groot grows up between the major movies. 9. Daredevil Season 1. Now it's time to head back down to Earth. But we're not going to the fancy, luxurious Avengers Tower. Instead, we're dropping straight into the gritty, dark, and sketchy streets of Hell's Kitchen, New York. After the damage left behind by the Battle of New York, the city's mob has gotten way more powerful. Enter Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer who puts on a black suit at night to beat down criminals. This show has a completely mature, brutal, and realistic tone, and it introduces you to one of the greatest villains ever, Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin. 10. Jessica Jones Season 1. Right around the same time as Daredevil, just a little further across town in New York, we meet Jessica Jones. She's a private investigator with superpowers and a super dark, traumatic past. This show brings a gritty detective neo-noir vibe, featuring Jessica's face-off against one of Marvel's most psychotic and terrifying characters, Kilgrave, the Purple Van, who has the power of mind control. Watching these two shows will completely flip your perspective on the entire Marvel Universe. 11. Avengers Age of Ultron. And now the explosive finale of Phase 2. Tony Stark and Bruce Banner try to build a planetary defense shield using artificial intelligence and Loki's scepter, but the experiment goes horribly wrong, giving birth to a lethal AI named Ultron, whose sole purpose is to wipe out humanity. This movie is incredibly packed and epic. It introduces the Maximoff twins, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, gives birth to Vision with the Mind Stone embedded in his forehead, and changes the Avengers lineup forever. Alright guys, we finally made it to the most packed, epic, and flawless phase in the entire Marvel Universe, Phase 3.
As we move forward, Thanos' incoming storm gets heavier and heavier. But before that, we gotta clean up the mess left behind by the war with Ultron. Let's get into the exact timeline. 1. Ant-Man. Right after the madness of Ultron, we get introduced to Scott Lang, a good-hearted ex-con who accidentally stumbles upon Dr. Hank Pym's shrinking suit and technology. This movie is a super fun, comedic heist film, but don't let its small scale fool you. It officially opens the door to the quantum realm for the very first time, which is the ultimate key to saving the entire world down the road. 2. Daredevil, Season 2. We're heading back to Hell's Kitchen. Matt Murdock is facing some heavy new challenges now. This season is absolutely crucial because it brings in two of Marvel's most badass characters, the Punisher, Frank Castle, with his brutal philosophy of absolute punishment, and Elektra, diving straight into ninja warfare against a shadowy, terrifying group called the Hand. 3. Luke Cage, Season 1. Now the story throws us into the neighborhood of Harlem, New York. We meet Luke Cage, a guy with bulletproof skin and insane superhuman strength. After a botched experiment, he just wants to live a quiet life in the shadows, but the deep corruption in his neighborhood forces him to step up and defend his people. The vibe and the soundtrack of this show are incredibly unique and hit totally different. 4. Iron Fist, Season 1. The story of Danny Rand, a kid from a billionaire family who went missing in Tibet years ago. Now, after 15 years of martial arts training in a mystical hidden city, he returns to New York with his glowing iron fist to reclaim his family legacy and beat down corruption. 5. The Defenders, miniseries.
And now the grand finale of Marvel's street-level universe. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, literally all the lone wolf heroes you've gotten to know, are forced to join forces and form the Defenders to save the entire city of New York from the Hand's massive ninja army. 6. Captain America: Civil War. The absolute bombshell of Phase 3. The fallout from previous battles forces global governments to demand oversight on the Avengers. This triggers a massive ideological rift and a bloody feud between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, completely tearing the team apart and disbanding them. The action in this movie is an absolute masterpiece, and most importantly, we get our very first looks at Spider-Man, Tom Holland, and Black Panther right here. 7. Black Widow. Even though this movie came out years later, timeline-wise, it happens exactly after Natasha Romanoff goes on the run at the end of Civil War. Natasha, who is now a wanted fugitive, has to face her dark past in Russia and deal with old Soviet agents. Placing it right here keeps the emotional continuity perfectly smooth. 8. Black Panther. Following the madness of Civil War, Prince T'Challa returns to his hidden ultra-advanced nation of Wakanda to officially take the throne as king. This movie completely opens up the world of vibranium tech and Wakanda's powerful military, the exact army that's going to be the front line of defense in Marvel's upcoming massive war. 9. Spider-Man: Homecoming. A young Peter Parker goes back to high school after the thrilling experience of Civil War. Mentored under the watchful eye of Tony Stark, he tries to prove himself as a real hero and collides with a brilliant street-level villain named the Vulture, who's been building high-tech weapons salvaged from the ruins of the Battle of New York. 10. The Punisher, Season 1. Spinning off from the events of Daredevil Season 2, Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, is now presumed dead by the world.
He operates deep in New York's underground, hunting down the people who destroyed his family. This is hands down the most brutal, bloody, and pitch-black show on the entire Marvel list, perfectly showing the raw psychology of war. 11. Doctor Strange. Now the storyline completely flips, and we officially get introduced to magic, the mirror dimension, and alternative realities in Marvel. It's the story of Dr. Stephen Strange, an arrogant neurosurgeon who loses the use of his hands after a horrific car crash. He heads to Tibet for a cure, but ends up becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. This movie introduces the 5th Infinity Stone, the Time Stone, the Eye of Agamotto. 12. The street-level shows: Jessica Jones Season 2, Luke Cage Season 2, Iron Fist Season 2, Daredevil Season 3. In this stretch of our marathon, we hit the fallout of the Defenders battle and see the chaos left on the streets after these organizations get dismantled. In Season 2, Jessica Jones is wrestling with her own identity. Luke Cage and Iron Fist face way heavier family and mob threats in their second seasons. And finally, the absolute masterpiece that is Daredevil Season 3. This is where Matt Murdock literally rises from the ashes to go toe-to-toe with Kingpin one last time in a brutal psychological and physical war. Daredevil Season 3 officially holds some of the highest ratings for any superhero show ever made. 13. Thor: Ragnarok. A total 180-degree shift in tone, packed with color, music, and pure comedy. Thor's hammer gets destroyed by his sister Hela, and he gets banished to a bizarre gladiator planet. He gets a haircut and runs straight into the Hulk, who had been missing since Age of Ultron. The ending of this movie and the destruction of Asgard instantly, without a single second of a break, throws us right into the clutches of Thanos' warship. 14. The Punisher Season 2 and Jessica Jones Season 3. Right before Thanos' snap shakes the entire universe, this is where you watch the grand finale of the Netflix era. Frank Castle is forced to pull his guns out again to protect a young girl, and Jessica Jones goes up against a terrifyingly smart serial killer in Season 3, perfectly wrapping up this whole street-level era. 15. Ant-Man and the Wasp. This movie takes place right alongside the events of the next film, but it's way better to watch this one first. The story follows Scott Lang, who is under house arrest because of what he did in Civil War, but he ends up teaming back up with Hank Pym and his daughter Hope to venture into the quantum realm. The post-credit scene of this movie will literally blow your mind and explain exactly why Scott Lang wasn't around for the upcoming war. 16. Avengers: Infinity War. The main storm and a 10-year wait are finally over. Thanos steps onto the battlefield himself with his army to collect all 6 Infinity Stones, including the Soul Stone. Our fractured heroes on Earth, in Wakanda, and across deep space try everything to stop him.
The ending of this movie and that iconic snap is easily the most shocking, pitch-black moment in cinema history. 17. Avengers Endgame, the epic conclusion to the first 3 phases. 5 years after Thanos' devastating catastrophe, the remaining heroes are drowning in grief and defeat. But with the return of a key player and the help of the Quantum Realm, they hatch a plan to pull off a time heist and bring the stones back. The final battle in this movie is the biggest gathering in cinema history, closing the book on a golden era forever. All right, guys, there you have it. The ultimate super detailed treasure map to watching Marvel movies from Phase 0 all the way to the end of Phase 3.
With this chronological formula and story timeline, you're not just gonna fully get the main story of the Infinity Stones and the Thanos saga. By watching those street-level masterpieces and the nostalgic hits in Phase 0, your brain is now perfectly wired for where Marvel is heading right now. The brand new phase, the rise of Doctor Doom, and the Secret Wars. Now that you've made it this far, it's your turn to back the channel. Go ahead and smash that like button right now. If you haven't subscribed yet, definitely hit that sub button and turn on notifications so that the second I drop part 2 of this video, covering phases 4 to 6 and the absolutely insane multiverse saga, you'll be the very first to know. Also, let me know down in the comments, out of all these movies and shows we talked about, which one was the absolute best and most badass in your opinion? Tobey Maguire's performance, Daredevil Season 1, the masterpiece that is Infinity War, or the epic conclusion of Endgame? I'm gonna read and like every single comment. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me through this entire marathon. Until the next video and part 2 of the MCU Watch Order, peace out.